Welcome to the Clemson Dubcast. It is Wednesday, November 5th, a day after Dabo Swinney in his press conference said he needs to start listening to his instincts more. What does this mean? We have plenty of ideas at TigerIllustrated.com, part of the On3 network. Ideas that are based on some guessing, but largely educated guessing, largely on information. This is going to be one hell of an off-season for that football program. I think that is safe to say. And we are going to be plugged into every step of the process of revitalization, rebuilding, rethinking, all the above. The best place to be to learn about it all, of course, is TigerIllustrated.com. If you're not already a member, now is an ideal time to sign up. So this podcast has been going since August of 2018, more than 770,000 downloads of more than 340 episodes. And my great friends, Blake Smith and Brooke Archenhold at Parham Smith Archenhold Law Firm, have been a part of it for every single one. They are longtime Clemson people, and they give you the experience and the results you need. Their team can help with personal injury and medical malpractice cases. They currently serve North Carolina and South Carolina with offices in Greenville, Spartanburg, and Charleston. If you or your family has been injured, I want you to help you get the compensation you deserve. Schedule a free consultation by calling 864-301-8767 or by going to parhamlaw.com. That's PARHAM law.com. Celero Commerce, formerly known as Tandem Payment, is a full-service integrated electronic payments provider powered by leading-edge technology. Celero provides a wide array of merchant solutions, simplified payments. They make onboarding, taking payments, maintaining risk management and compliance, and getting support quick and easy. At Celero, they're all about helping you achieve sustainable growth as a business. Taking payments isn't the only thing your business needs. With Celero's solutions, you can manage inventory, sell products and services via social media, schedule staff, track sales, get reports, and much, much more. Find out more about Celero at celerocommerce.com. That's CELERO commerce.com. All right, we're going to introduce Tim Bourret, who is being inducted into the Clemson Athletics Hall of Fame on Friday night, with the words from Dabo Swinney on Tuesday at his press conference. Really goes a long way in telling you what Tim Bourret meant to Dabo Swinney, what he means to him, and what he meant and means to Clemson University. Here we go.
About Tim too. He sat next to you when you got that orange jacket to be head coach. To see him in this development.
Well, he survived me. So yeah, I mean, Tim Bourret is. I still think of Tim as here. I mean, because I get to see him all the time. But I mean, Tim, I wouldn't have made it without Tim. I mean, I really wouldn't. Him and Beth Douglas, I wouldn't, and Andy Johnston, I wouldn't have made it. Andy Johnston, Beth Douglas, Tim Bourret, Ren Wyndham, Jill Wilkes, I wouldn't have made it without them. I'd have never made it, because I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I knew how to coach, but I didn't know anything about housing or the media and all that stuff and all the behind the scenes routine stuff that I had to do, and Tim, even to this day, Tim is such a great mentor for me, such a great voice of calmness. We've had some great moments. One of my favorite moments was celebrating the national championship with Tim, beating Notre Dame in 15, like a game that just lasted for 100 years. It was like 100 years to happen, right? And then it was a 16-day layoff, and it had been planned forever, and it's like, and to live that moment with Tim, but then certainly the national championships, that first one was pretty cool, and then he kind of supposedly retired after that, but he's been a blessing to me. We've had a lot of tough moments in some locker rooms and some great moments, but he's always just such good counsel, such wisdom, and he's always let me be me. And I think he learned me early and could help navigate me, being me. So I've just always had a great appreciation for Tim. I mean, he's a friend. Finally got married. I finally talked him into that. Tim Bourret ought to be on the stadium. I mean, for sure. He's as good as it gets, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels that way in this room. He's a pro's pro. in every sense of the word, and tells the truth, and he's tough and he's firm when he needs to be, but he's one of the smartest people I've ever been around. I mean, he's Clemson Google for a reason. I know half the stuff I know because he tells me. I don't do any research. He always makes me feel better. He'll say, "Yeah, but did you know?" I'll be like, "Oh, we did that? Well, I thought we sucked." Okay, good. So he's the best. He's the best. Love you, Tim, man. I'm proud of you, man. I mean, just so deserving. It's really cool.
All right, joined by soon-to-be Clemson Athletics Hall of Famer Tim Bourret. Love the ring of that. Thanks for joining us, sir.
So do I. Thank you, Larry. I'm very, very appreciative of the honor.
I wasn't yesterday at Dabo's press conference. I come in and my computer bag is all over the table where you're normally sitting, and you come in and I see you go to the back and start to sit down, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he didn't sit here because of me, so I had to call you back up closer to the front. Can't have a Hall of Famer in the back row at a Dabo press conference.
I didn't know if there was somebody else because I didn't recognize the bag, so I don't know if somebody else was already sitting there. So into the back, but glad as always to sit next to you for the press conference.
Well, it became even more meaningful when Dabo was asked about your Hall of Fame induction, and of course, as Dabo, he's one of a kind in offering tributes to the people who are important to him. It was really cool to be I guess about a foot away from you during that soliloquy. What did that mean to you, and what were you feeling and thinking at the time?
Well, yeah, it meant a lot, and I appreciate him saying the things he said, because we do go way back to 2003. I've always had a good relationship with all the coaches that I've worked with, but especially Dabo, because it has been a long experience when you add in assistant coach and head coach. And I think that was important, that when he did become the interim coach, that we had a good, strong relationship where he trusted me and I believed in him. And that really goes back to the fact that he was the recruiting coordinator. And of course, I always wrote all the bios of the signee class. So, for at least that month going into signing day, which was, of course, in February in those days, we were pretty much joined to the hip and communicated often. I'll never forget sitting in his office when CJ Spiller announced that he was coming. And so I got to know Dabo very well and worked very closely with him. So that part of it for us, I would say, was an easy transition during a time that could have been a difficult transition.
He yesterday's press conference, I mean, obviously we're going to get into the history here in this conversation, but I have to say yesterday's press conference was it was very unique in that, and this is not a negative, but I think I said afterward, I said that might have been the longest press conference and I guess most heated opinionated press conference ever for a 3-5 head coach. And again, not a negative. It's more like, wow, man, this dude is just one of a kind. You just don't picture many coaches in the ditch like this. Going off on the officiating, going off on the playoff, 12-team playoff. What was your biggest takeaway from that? I guess hour plus long.
The first thing I did think of as I looked at my watch as he was walking out, it was 12 noon, and all the press conferences I've done on Tuesdays with not just Dabo, with other coaches, I don't remember going a full hour or going to 12 o'clock unless for some reason we started at 11:15. So, he did go in a lot of different directions. It's kind of funny. My boss at NBC Sports, where I do golf, Tommy Roy's a big Clemson fan, and he watches the he watches the press conference each week, and he texted me that that might be the longest press conference ever for a coach who's 3-5. I had to agree with him, and but yeah, there were other obviously other subjects. The way the game ended against Duke with the call, and he took the opportunity to make the point that probably a lot of coaches feel the same, that there should be some kind of accountability when it comes to officiating. And of course, the other thing that you think of is that, well, unfortunately, if there was accountability, we might not have a lot of officials.
Yeah.
I did put out some interesting points that I wondered what the ACC's reaction would be. He mentioned that they're allowed to question 10 calls, and he said he had it one game this year where there were 14, and he in another game where I don't know if it was this game or not, but he got to report that 5 of the 10 he turned in were wrong. So I mean, I certainly understand his point. Kay Klubnik's accountable when he speaks with the media afterwards. Dabo certainly is. Coaches are, but he is right. For it seems like the only people that aren't are the officials who are making huge determinations. And I think I mentioned to you the possibility that the non-call of offsides in the Georgia Tech Wake Forest game was even more egregious than what we saw in Death Valley on Saturday. And if we come down to the end of the season, which is very possible, that Georgia Tech gets in the playoff because they won that game, a game that really it should have lost, you're talking a mistake that was millions of dollars worth.
What has it been like for you as you're observing this season unfold, not just in press conferences, but when you're with him in more, I guess, one-on-one private situations? When they were 1-2, that felt like the end of the world. That felt like a low point, and that's when he said, we might suck. We might lay an egg and finish 6-6, but I don't think so. I mean, the definition of laying an egg has been redefined over the last month and a half, because they're 3-5 and 6-6 would feel like an accomplishment. What has this been like for you, just as you're observing him, interacting with him? Just he mentions 2010. I just think it's just two different scenarios to me, because that was his second year. And there weren't great expectations going into that year. The standard had not been set going into that year. That's what makes it feel different to me. How does it feel to you? And what have sort of been some of your impressions as you've observed this sort of unraveling on the field? Right.
Yeah. I mean, 2010. Obviously, I was with him every step of the way as the SID, and there were more heartbreaking, games. We lost 7 games that year, 5 games decided by a touchdown on the last. Interesting similarities, though. We lost on a 55-yard field goal on the last play of the game at Florida State. We lost on a 55-yard field goal on the last play at Georgia Tech. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons he said he feels like he's reliving 2010. But I mean, let's be honest, so far this has been worse, because at least, I mean, we were the only team in 2010 to at least tie Auburn, who went on to win the national championship. They won all their games, and their only overtime game was against us that year. So, and you're right, it was early in the in his tenure. But I did say this to him after I finished with the interview post game against Duke. I said, Coach, if you're in this long enough, you're going to see just about everything from my highs and lows. And then later this week, I did send him a chart that backs up what I was saying and what I was meaning. That, and I'll go through it for you very briefly, but basically, Newt Rockne was the winningest coach in the history of college football, 88%. his 11th year at Notre Dame, he was 5-4. I don't know if Grantland Rice came out from New York to do an interview with him as to what was wrong with Notre Dame football, but things were pretty down in 1928 for Notre Dame. The same thing for Frank Leahy, who's the second winningest coach in the history of college football. He was 4-1 at Notre Dame in his 9th year. Bud Wilkinson in his 12th year at Oklahoma was 3-6-2. And you actually did hear him mention that Bear Bryant in his 12th and 13th years at Alabama was 6-5 and then 6-5-1. My point being that, if you're in this long enough, you're gonna see it. You're not gonna be have a top 20 team every year. Although Dabo has had a run going into this year of 14 straight years, which is remarkable. I believe that's the 4th longest streak for a coach in the history of college football. So this has been surprising. It has been disappointing based on the preseason feelings about the team, predictions or feelings that I totally agreed with. I mean, I thought we were going to have a terrific year. Clemson and Penn, it's interesting that Clemson and Penn State were the only 2 teams in the country with 16 returning starters, and we had 8 on both sides of the ball, so we had great balance. And that, I guess in the days of the transfer portal, that's no longer a relevant statistic to gauge a team's prognostications.
Do you look at it as just one bad season, though? Because I think quite a few Clemson fans, even though obviously winning 9, 10, 11 games the last few years, that's not easy to do. There's also the decline of, I think the 2 big things that stand out to me is, if we're talking about beyond just this season, are the losses at home, 7-8 at Death Valley against Power Conference since late 2002. They've lost 6 straight. And then the losses to unranked, which we both know that Clemson piled up 2 very lengthy winning streaks over unranked during the glory days. Not saying they should be doing that, but the fact that 10 of the last 18 losses since 2001 are to unranked, those 2 things suggest, I think it's fair to say that it's not just one bad year. Do you agree with that, or is there more nuance to it in your mind?
Well, right now it's just one bad year because we've had just one bad year. We've had 14 straight years of winning at least 9 games. So what you're doing is you're basing it off what's happened this year to try to predict from the future. And obviously, Dabo's I'm sure we'll have to make some changes. We've seen him make changes before in the past. I give you some old time examples recently. I'll give you a more recent example. I'm sure you could have had, if you were a person who covered Notre Dame in 2016 and you wanted to talk to John Heisler, who was kind of in my same position late in his career and been around 40 years, you would have said the same thing about Brian Kelly. Notre Dame in 2016, the year Clemson won the national championship, was 4-8 and had a horrible season. And people had the same doubts you just said about the future of Notre Dame football, just as you said about the future of Clemson football. But they obviously felt, and I agreed, that Brian Kelly had done a lot, not as much as what Dabo has done, as if Brian was just in his 7th year, that he deserved the opportunity to get it right. And so in 2018 and 2020, Notre Dame went to the college football playoff. So my point being that he was given the opportunity to make changes and get it right. And I think Dabo deserves that same opportunity also.
Oh, yeah. And I'm certainly not suggesting he doesn't deserve the opportunity to get it right. I'm just saying that, the two of the things that he really prided himself on when he first took the job in 2008, from the moment that he said in the locker room before that Georgia Tech game, I don't know if you were in there. I guess you weren't, but he was like they broadcast it on ESPN It was
right. Yeah, I was in there. Yeah.
when he yelled, "An underdog at Death Valley." That's embarrassing, right? And so I think two of the sort of pillars that he, I think, established then, sort of aspirationally, was, "Hey, man, we got to freaking win at home, right? Make this a tough place to play, and we got to win the games we're supposed to win to be a more consistent program." So what I'm saying to you now is, like, beyond just this year, there are some trends, dealing with the regular losses at home since 02, and then the regular losses to unranked.
Since 02?
I'm sorry, since 22. My fault.
Okay, 22.
Yeah.
Okay.
My apologies. That sort of point to, okay, there's been a decline here, and I'm just wondering what the happy medium is, sort of, as you're trying to assess it from a distance. Like, what's the fairest sort of evaluation of where they are? Is it just one bad season, or were there signs of the decline that went that go beyond before just this season?
Yeah, no, there's no doubt there's been a decline since 6 consecutive Final Fours, which basically the only person ever has done that, I guess, is I guess Saban and Coach Bowden and I guess Bud Wilkinson did it too. But anyway, there have been items of decline certainly over the last few years relative to what we accomplished. I do get a kick up. I listen on the radio and people call in and say that, since 2020, the program has, or the last 5 years, it's gone down. So there's 64 FBS teams, Power 4 conference teams. 3 of the 64 have won 3 conference championships over the last 5 years. Clemson, Michigan, and Alabama. And that's it. So, you can look at it that way and say, well, how much of a decline has there really been? Relative to the previous 6 years? Sure. This year, relative to all those other years, yeah, by a long shot. It's been a poor year. So, but whether or not it continues, that's something we're going to have to see if what Dabo does in the off season, whether he dives into the transfer portal, whether he makes significant coaches changes. We'll just have to see. But yes, it's been in decline since 2022, but everything is relative. It's certainly we certainly would have taken the 22, 23, and 24 seasons during Coach Bowden's tenure versus Coach West's tenure versus Hatfield's tenure.
For sure. I think the most notable thing that came out of that press conference, even though the ACC officiating probably got the most play, was when Dabo showed some introspection, and he said he needs to get back to listening to his instincts. He didn't really elaborate, but as somebody who's known him for a long time, what was your reaction and what's your interpretation of that?
Yeah, no, I found that interesting too. And I was trying to think of something of what he has done in recent years that goes against his past. And I really wasn't sure what he was talking about, to be honest with you. I don't know if it's instincts, what it has regards to recruiting. I mean, I don't see that his approach to recruiting has changed. I don't know that his approach to assistant coaches has changed. So I really don't have an answer for you on that.
My belief is that after last season, that he was close to making more than just one change on the defensive side of the ball, and he didn't do it. That's my guess. Is he was close to...
Yeah, man, that could be. But he is not anything to be along those lines. That was a little bit of a surprise. But I do think overall, I think there'll be a willingness to make significant changes after the season.
Just getting a window into your relationship with him, just curious, like, do you feel like if y'all are sitting there, you're I guess you do your interviews with him on Fridays before games?
Thursday,
sorry. And you're just, and when the microphone's off and you're just talking, do you feel like, are you, like, would you say, hey, Dabo, what were you talking about your instincts? I mean, do you feel comfortable? Is your relationship at that point where you can ask him and he'll confide in you and say, well, this is what I was talking about?
Yes, except sometimes there's other people in the room. So when I do that interview, so I don't know that I'll do that. I am one-on-one with him after the game, when we do the post-game interviews, and he'll be very honest with me about what he thinks. It's it is interesting. I mean, I do see where he's coming from on a lot of things, or what his real feelings are. For instance, I listen on the radio, and a lot of fans call in and they talk about that the guys are dogging it or not playing hard. And after these losses, the first thing Dabo's basically said to me says we're still playing hard. We're just, making mistakes and going the wrong places or taking the wrong angles, or we're not seeing receivers that are open, things along those lines. So I know that hasn't been been an issue. There have been other areas that are, but at some point I might ask him that if I get him one-on-one, but not when there's other people in the room.
So after games, does he talk to you? Do you do the interview after he's already talked to the team?
Yes.
Okay.
So when the game ends, Don and I are on the air, and so then by the time I get down from the press box, I go into his office, and I just sit in his office by myself and wait for him after he's talked to the team, or he's he'll talk to recruits or whatever. So then he'll come in and talk to me one-on-one. And then he'll go and do the media first, or then the coach's show, or depends on the game what he does first. It's up to him and Ross. But yeah, that's when I get him.
So really, that's the first opportunity that he gets to sort of take a deep breath and really reflect, and you're the audience for that.
Yeah, and I'll mention some things to him. I mean, Ross has talked to him immediately after the game, so he'll give him some notes and some things on the game, and then we'll talk a little bit before I try to get a barometer on what he wants to say, and then I might have some suggestions on which direction we'll go, and or tell him some facts that I know that might lead him in a different direction, either with me, or then sometimes he'll take that to his post-game interview.
One of the most interesting things he said yesterday about you and your relationship with him is you've provided him great counsel, and that you tell the truth, and that you're tough and firm when you were tough and firm when you needed to be. I just would love to hear more about that. Some examples of that come to mind.
Well, I think I always try to call a spade with a coach, because I try to give him a little bit of a prep to think about what he's going to be asked. And so, a lot of times that will bring up some negative stuff that he needs to be aware of, that he needs to think about what he's going to, to say. When he said that, I'm sure, though, he's thinking about 2008 when I did have to lead him along a lot and tell him, you really need to do like the day he got hired. I said, you really need to do, a press conference after practice, or before practice and after practice. Tommy did something before too. Actually, I guess we just did something after practice in 2008. And I, encouraged him to be available and to the media. And I thought if he was going to get this job, he needed to let people know what he was all about. And so, for instance, he had that first week. We happened to have an open date after that first game against Georgia Tech, and so he kind of bought in and on trying to rally the forces, whether it be having the students come out to practice and kick field goals or whatever. I told him I thought it was a good idea to now this was the only time we did it, was his first year, but to let TV in and let him hear his pregame, because I knew he was a good speaker and would be a good motivator with the team. So he kind of listened to me about letting the TV networks in the locker room before the game to hear what he had to say. That's probably where he was coming from. But also, whenever we had a press conference and, we happened to be losing games or winning games, I tried to give him a heads up on what I thought he was going to be asked or what he was going to address. And then sometimes there was something he wanted to address that he, ran it by me to see what I thought.
How about the the South Carolina rant in 11, I guess like 4 or 5 days after they won their, 9, 10, 11, third straight game, and he was getting a lot of heat before the ACC championship game. I had always heard that was kind of, he wanted that question to be asked so he could go on the rant.
Yeah, I think he was obviously ready for that. I think he wanted that, out there. He wanted to. I mean, he knew people were disappointed, but he also, it was almost kind of like a Rick Barnes approach to try to, get people, fired up or whatever. And it certainly worked, because we killed for Virginia Tech the next game. Obviously, Clemson fans were frustrated after losing to South Carolina 3 times, which became a 5-game streak, which goes back to my point that if you're in this business long enough, you're going to see everything. I mean, a future Hall of Fame coach has got the longest losing streak against our rival. So, I mean, that's just some of the things that are going to happen if you're in the business long enough.
I thought too at the time that what really made that kind of a genius move going on the rant was it took the target off his players.
Exactly. Yes. No, that's good. Now, he never said to me, well, I'm going to do this because I want to take the pressure off of Taj or whatever. But he like I said, he never said that to me, but I could tell that I think he looked at it as being a positive byproduct of it. And, after we lost to South Carolina for, obviously all 3 years Taj was the starter, we lost to South Carolina, but in 12 and 13, Taj came back great with record-setting performances in the Peach Bowl and the Orange Bowl, respectively, which were huge wins for the future of the program.
It's funny talking about late in that 11 season, the rant after South Carolina, the ACC championship, the high of that, and then the low of 70-33 against West Virginia, and then he had another rant after that. I guess it was like maybe a couple of weeks after the Orange Bowl. He made sure that their championship trophies, the Atlantic Division trophy in 9, the Atlantic Division trophy in 11, and the ACC championship trophy in 11 were all sitting there right beside him. And he went on that rant about the Devil's Playground, message boards. And it really, looking back, it was the time early in the marriage where both coach and fan base were still getting to know each other, I guess. And he's having to mark his territory a lot back then to, I guess, make sure people still appreciated accomplishments that hadn't been achieved in 2 decades before that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think that made sense, and I think it was the right thing to do because obviously in football, you have extreme highs and lows, and winning the ACC championship for the first time in 20 years, beating the number 3 ranked team in the country, Virginia Tech, who was coached by a Hall of Fame coach. And what did we win that game? Either 38-3 or 38-10. I can't remember.
10.
And then give up 70 to West Virginia and just get embarrassed in that game. I mean, that's a perfect example of, if you're in this business long enough, you're going to see everything. And I can't remember going from a high to a low like that afterwards. Although I will say, I always said there was a reason for that, and that was that season was all about winning the first ACC championship in 20 years. And when they did that, everybody went and relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the reasons what happened.
What do you remember about him wanting to tighten media access? Under Tommy Bowden, everything was really fast and loose to the point where somebody like me, I can just stroll through the football offices and peek my head in the doors of the assistant coaches and say, hey, you got a minute? Like, that just seems like a different galaxy from now, not just at Clemson, but everywhere. Was it pretty immediate that he wanted, in 2008 when he took over, that he wanted to change some things as far as the access and the messaging and things like that?
Yeah, a little bit. He thought things were too loose with Tommy, and I certainly saw where he was coming from. It was a little bit difficult transition for me, who was, used to being more accessible with everybody. But I certainly saw his point. And then when we had, the losing season in 2010, things got tighter, and I've understood that. It was really, Tommy Bowden was really old school because of his father. I mean, his father had always saw the importance of, getting your message out with the media. One of the all-timers with Bobby Bowden was that he had a deal with his SID. They played all these night games, at Florida State when he started. And so if they were ahead by 2 touchdowns with 5 minutes to go, he let his SID come down and pull him off the sidelines and get quotes from him with there's still 5 minutes to go in the game, so they could get his message out about the game as soon as the clock hit 0. That's how media, I guess, savvy is one way you might want to put it, that Bobby Bowden was, and that's what Tommy Bowden grew up around. So, that's why things were then. But as I look back at things have changed everywhere, from Notre Dame to Clemson to everywhere, and things have gotten a little bit tightened up, and I certainly understand it. So, that's the way things are going forward just about everywhere. But quite frankly, I mean, Clemson's media policies are not stricter than a lot of places. There are a lot of places that you don't get any assistant coaches throughout the whole year, and things are a lot more buttoned down.
Listen up, Clemson Tiger fans. Founders Federal Credit Union has a new office right on campus in the Hendricks Center. We're here to serve you with the financial tools you need and the personalized service you deserve. Not on campus, Founders has an office conveniently located on Old Greenville Highway. Stop by or visit foundersfcu.com to learn more and apply for a membership. Relax, you're with Founders. Federally insured by NCUA, membership qualification required. As president of Harris Home in Anderson, South Carolina, Scott Junkins knows all about foundations and how to cover them beautifully. His client list includes Clemson University, BMW, and Greenville's Flora Field, along with thousands of homes and businesses throughout the area. Harris Home was previously Harris Flooring, but the next logical step was to expand beyond flooring and manage complete interior renovations. Scott has assembled an expert team that completely manages every step of any redesign project, from ideas to finishing touches with both residential and commercial projects. Open the door to more by going to discoverharris.com or by calling 864-225-8631. He says he doesn't read anything. He said earlier this season he knows there's criticism because he has texts from friends saying, we're praying for you. And that's the way he knows there's criticism. I don't believe that. I don't think he sits there on his phone or his computer scrolling my website and my message board. I'm not saying that, but surely he sees stuff he needs to see that is negative. What's the process there? What was it like when you were there? Is it basically like, hey, if I need to see something, if you see something that I need to see, print it out and put it on my desk?
Yeah, that's pretty much the way it was. I mean, he doesn't have a subscription to Tiger Illustrated. But yeah, and that was, we looked at it as that was part of our job, and I'm sure that's the same way with Ross. I can't remember now. I will say it might be a little different from television. He might have the TV on during lunch, and I know this happened. He saw something off a press conference. He said that one of the ESPN guys had said when he was watching a Sports Center. I can't remember it, but it was definitely when I was SID, and he called me about that. So, I mean, there might be some things he'd see on television, but not as much. And he pretty much relied on me if there's something he needed to know, in other forms of the media.
Yeah, I think in 18, when they beat South Carolina 56-35, I guess.
35. Yeah.
And he saw the next day, I think he saw on the bottom line or something on ESPN, something like a quoting a fan or something. It felt like a loss or something like that. And he just flipped out on his teleconference later that day. I don't think you had left by.
No, I left back. I probably wasn't even. I was doing a lot of golf tournaments for NBC in the fall of 2018. I wasn't even doing the games on the radio, but. Yeah, no, I think you're right, but yeah, it does go back to what I said, that he'll see more things that are on television than in the printed papers.
It seems like in like the last 5 years, what really gets him peeved and ticked off is less local stuff, the local whatever criticism or scrutiny, and it's more the national conversation. Probably started during COVID and all that, when George Floyd, when he was getting just hammered mercilessly for all kinds of nonsense about being a racist and all that stuff. And it seems like since then, and I'm partly reading between the lines here, so tell me if you think this sounds right. It's more the national stuff that really gets under his skin than what the people write locally.
Yeah, probably. Probably one of the reasons for that is not as many of you as there used to be.
Yeah.
So we don't have as many newspapers or beat guys as we used to. So yeah, that's probably he might. Yeah, and with the ACC network too, covering Clemson, he's probably more in tune to what's on the ACC network. I think all those coaches are, and quite frankly, there's probably a feeling among the ACC coaches that the SEC network is more pro SEC than maybe the ACC network is pro ACC. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but so I think a lot of the coaches in general are in tune of what's being said on the ACC network more than they have been before there was an ACC network.
He said something on his radio show the other night. Qualk was hosting it. He said, there's all kinds of crazy stuff being said about me out there, and I don't even care because I don't even know these people. And so that tells me that's more of the national, regional kind of criticism. Yeah,
probably so. Yeah.
What do you remember from? He mentioned one of his greatest memories was celebrating the national championship in Tampa with you. What images come first to your mind when you think back to those sort of, I guess, private moments?
So after the game, and everybody goes to where they have the trophy presentation, and so I'm running around with getting organized for how we're going to do post game, and And so I didn't go up on the stage. Obviously, that was for the players and him. And so he kind of walked off to the side of the stage and just reached down and shook my hand and said, after 35 years, I know this really means a lot to you. And I said, it sure did. So that's the image in my mind of, with all the craziness going on and all the people on that stage, he left the middle of the stage and came over and leaned over and shook my hand.
All right. I think enough time has passed. It's been 9 years. We can talk about maybe some of the most anxious media-related moments for you that season and for me. Two episodes. I don't know if you remember these clearly, but I'll refresh you. One was I had an intern, Riley Morningstar, coming to the post-practice Dabo press conferences on Wednesdays, and this is after the Pitt game, after they lost.
Right.
And I asked Riley to ask something to the effect of, hey, can you ask him if they plan on running Deshaun Watson more moving forward? Because Deshaun had thrown it, 90 times that game, I guess.
He was 52 for 70.
70.
He'd thrown for 580 yards, and we lost.
So my intern had already gotten there early, I guess, maybe a half hour early. He's the only person there, standing by the tombstones, I guess. Outside the practice field. He sees Ray McCloud being carted off the field and over to the stadium because back then the Reeves Center wasn't there. And so he asked, I think the first question Riley asked was, hey, what's up with Ray McCloud?
Right.
And Dabo says something like, well, what are you? Were you watching practice? Like, who are you? And they get off the wrong foot there. And then Riley asked him the part about, will Deshaun run the ball more? And that's when Dabo lost it and flipped out on him, asked him who he's with. Tiger Illustrated. Larry asked me to ask it. Dabo says, tell Larry to come ask me that himself. And there were people videoing. And again, it's been 9 years. I think we can all laugh about it now.
Yeah.
You asked some of the media people who were videoing, hey, can you please not disseminate that rant? Because that would have gone viral, Tim.
Yeah.
What do you remember from that?
I got to be honest with you. I don't remember that much. I mean, I think and I guess I would have remembered it more if I was out there with him when they were carting him off the field. But we obviously had gone to the national championship game the year before. We were right there for it in 2016. We thought maybe we had screwed up by losing the game by 1 point. And so Dabo was frustrated by that. And a lot of it is, is the timing of it. But I do remember that, coach, as all coaches are very, concerned about, people finding out injuries and whatever. So, I mean, there's some times that, things like that did happen and you just had to deal with it and try to talk them down off the ledge, so to speak.
And full disclosure, I had some responsibility in that too, because I should have known that 4 or 5 days after a difficult loss, you don't just play fast and loose with asking an intern, questions, sort of.
Yeah,
questions.
You're right. You're right. There's a perfect example. If you had asked the same thing, there wouldn't have been the same reaction because he'd have more respect for you than an intern, as any coach would.
Second episode, getting ready. Let's see, bowl practice, Fiesta Bowl practice semifinal. It's on campus, and they have the 20, 30-minute media viewing period to start the practice. It's time to go. 30 minutes are up, and I'm following you. I guess I'm not walking fast enough. And honestly, again, full disclosure, was I purposely walking slow just to sort of, you want to watch as much as you can. You want to see as much as you can.
Yeah.
Walking through the indoor practice facility, but you're like 20 yards ahead of me. It's not like I'm
right
hiding behind a bush or something.
Right.
And I hear screaming from the other side of the indoor facility. They're doing a punt drill or something, and Dabo's going nuts, going ballistic. And I'm like, oh, man, somebody must have really messed up that punt.
It was directed for you weren't leaving the facility fast enough.
And then he goes, hey! And I look over, and he goes, you, media. He doesn't even say my name. He says media.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I point at you, and then I raise my hands like, what is up? Like, what's going on here? And that didn't help. I walk out the door, and I go, geez, Tim, what's wrong with him? And you're like, I don't know. What happened? I said, well, and before I could even get it out, those double doors just bust open, and he's screaming. And I'm like, I was just following Tim. And he says, well, that's Tim's fault too. Y'all are never coming back. You're never coming back in here to watch any practice again. But the lesson here, and I guess I'll fast forward to after the championship game, in Tampa, after they win it all, and Dabo, it's the day after press conference, right? When they've had like 3 hours sleep, and Dabo says, you know, you guys in the local media, y'all have been around for the whole thing, and y'all do a great job. Y'all are professional, and I really respect what y'all do. And I got a text from Joe Galbraith who said, I think that was his apology to you. But the lesson there, Tim, and I don't mean to make this about me. I think it's also about you, is, man, when you're a head coach in the heat of a national championship chase, it's freaking stressful, and you're gonna be a little thin-skinned or a lot thin-skinned.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right, and it was my job and now Ross's job to try to deal with those situations and bring them back to earth. And so that's what you just try to do, and just try to be calm down, and because it's gonna happen. It happens for all coach. Nobody was crazier on stuff like that than Brian Kelly, and so I know John Heisler had the same things to deal with at Notre Dame. But part of the reason Dabo's successful is he's got the fight, he's got the passion in him, and so you're going to have those extremes one way or the other. So that was one of those. I do remember that. So I guess you should have run. Should have been running.
He said yesterday, that you learned him early. What does that mean?
I learned, meaning, I guess it means that I knew what he was about or where he was coming from early, I guess is what he meant by that. And I think that goes back to the fact that we had a relationship when he was an assistant coach. So it was easier to, work with him when he became, head coach. I mean, I think I had credibility with him, but he had credibility with me because he learned a lot when he was an assistant at Alabama. He'd been through the ups and downs at Alabama too. He knew what dealing with the media was all about at a big time level. And so, one of the things I was always impressed with him about is that when he was named the interim and he was wanting to be the permanent, so to speak, head coach, as they say, he put together an unbelievable book about every aspect of the program and how he would run the program. So he showed me that book once, and it was it must have been 3 inches thick, and so I knew he was somebody who wanted to do this, planned to do this, and was organized and prepared. So seeing that book also told me that this guy knows what he's doing.
I know there were probably lots of examples of you learning how to do it his way, things that fit his preferences. Thinking back, was there any instance where you said, no, Dabo, we have to do it this way. This is the way it's going to be done?
Not that I had, I can't remember a thing where I really had to fight him on something. I mean, or really come back at him. Because like I said, he kind of was wise to the ways of how things worked at a major, program. Like I said, we had a lot of discussions that first week about doing media availability and all that, and doing some interviews over the phone with some national people that I never really came across as, if you want this job, this is what you need to do. I don't remember saying that, but maybe he listened to what I had to say. That I was thinking, I was obviously communicating a lot with Terry Don, and I could tell that Terry Don really was serious about giving Dabo the job. He was always very impressed with him. Terry Don would go to practice a lot, and as Terry Don would tell you, that he felt as he go to practice, he felt himself being drawn to the wide receiver position and watching him coach that position. So, since I could tell that Terry Don kind of wanted Dabo to get the job, I kind of try to do things with that in mind.
So the outside world, they see coaches blow up on media periodically, and it becomes a sensation, becomes viral, whatever. That reporter, whoever it is, becomes an enemy of the state with the Clemson, with the fan base or whatever. They're evil people. But what those folks don't see from the outside is what usually happens privately, and that is coach pulls the reporter aside afterward or calls him and says, "Hey, man, we're good. Smooth things over. I was just trying to get a point across," and they're good. The relationship's good. Probably the most high-profile, memorable example of that was the Clemsoning rant when poor David Hale in 2015 was that he was asking the question in a positive light, like, "Hey, y'all have flushed this moniker. Can you reflect on that?" And then Dabo just goes off. What do you remember from that? I know that Dabo called David, I think, later that night and apologized and smoothed things over. What's your recollection of that?
Yeah, was that even after the Notre Dame game?
No, that was after Georgia Tech. It was so
in 15.
Yeah, so y'all had beaten Notre Dame, and then Georgia Tech, I think, was
right.
Next.
Okay, yeah.
So,
right, because that's yes.
So they had so not only had you gotten the big win, but you avoided the big letdown, right? After the big win, and that was Hale's premise, from what I can recall.
Right. Yeah. Obviously, I was in the room when he had that reaction, and I knew Clemsoning was a hot button word with him. And one of the things that upset him is because, really most of the Clemsoning was during Coach Bowden's time, when in 2004 we beat a top 10 Miami team and then lost to a 2-8 Duke team the very next week. But of course, Coach was an assistant during that time, so somehow I think he felt he was unjustly grouped in with that, and it kind of meshed into his time. And we had a few of those, early in his time, but yeah, that was a hot button issue, and I tried to tell him, that exactly what you just said, that I don't think David was coming from a negative in that. He was trying to say that you're overcoming this. And so, maybe that's why he called him later that night when I was able to talk to him about it.
So you don't remember sort of advising him, "Hey, you might need to call David"? He did that on his own?
I don't know that I ever told him to call David, but I definitely told him that, hey, David was not really coming from a negative there. And he might ask me for his number, because I don't know that he had David's number. So I don't know that I told him to call him. I think he felt he should call him.
So what's the Tim Bourret entourage going to be on Friday night at your table for the Hall of Fame?
Well, I appreciate that. I've got a lot of my former student assistants. Obviously, my wife, Kay, will be there, but Cricket Stewart, who was on my first staff, will be there. Jill Mickle, who was about 4 years after that, and then Jane Robelo's coming, who was one of my students way back, and then really honored that Tommy Roy, who's one of the foremost producers of NBC Sports and does the golf that I've worked with. He's coming up from Florida with his whole family for it, so I really appreciate. Honored by that. So yeah, we'll have a good group.
Can you put into words what it means to you?
Yeah, it does. And I really didn't think as much about it until Dabo said what he said, but it is a big honor. And what I really enjoy about it is because I look at the list of people in the Hall of Fame, and I haven't added it up yet, but there's a lot of people who are in the Hall of Fame, probably more than half of them, that were student athletes when I was, over the 40 years that I worked in the sports information office. So it's kind of neat to be in, with all those people. It is kind of funny, and you probably can agree with this, that I'm going in with Nuke because I probably had the hardest time getting Nuke to do interviews as far as a star player as anybody else. So, but I saw Nuke at the first game. He's obviously not going to be here this week because he's playing with Baltimore. But I saw him before the game, and he gave me a big hug, and I gave him a big hug and told him only 16 more catches to get to 1,000. And he had a big for his NFL career, and he had a big smile. So that was really good.
So what do you remember from trying to get him to do interviews? Him just saying, "Man, I don't want to do it."
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't ugly about it. Now, I'll tell you a funny story though, and Sanford Rogers very well. So we played in Boston College in 2012, and he might have come one Tuesday or during the season. They kept trying to tell him, "You're having this great year. You need to, So he has this great game at Boston College. And so I said, Sanford, see if you can get Nuke to come. I said, and I'd struck it out with him probably 5 times in a row. And Sanford just goes up to him, and I don't even know if he knew Sanford. And so Sanford says, "Come on, Nuke, let's go do interviews." And Nuke just gets up and follows him in and does interviews. And so I just got to roll my eyes and say, okay.
Maybe the key there was telling him he was doing it and not asking him.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe he felt he was, I don't know. I'll always remember that. And Sanford and I always have a big kick out of that I couldn't get Nuke to do interviews. And he just walked up to him one time, and he followed him like a puppy dog.
All right, Tim. Well, I echo everything Dabo said. What a special weekend for you, special weekend for all the folks who have worked with you over the years, and I really appreciate our relationship we've had, and very happy for you, sir.
Well, I appreciate it, and yes, you've got a person who's got great credibility with me, and you've got credibility with the fans and the coaches, and I don't know that there's a lot of people out there like you anymore who has the relationships that you have, having covered a program for a long time. So congratulations to you on your career too.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for the kind words, man. Well, we'll see you. We'll see you this weekend. We'll see what happens against the Noles.
Sounds good. Thanks, Larry.
I think what Tim was trying to say to me was, I'm old. I'm there for sure. And he's right. That was a fun trip down memory lane with Tim. Really appreciate him sharing his time. Also, thanks to our sponsors for continuing to help make this happen. And, of course, thanks to every single one of you for your loyalty, hitting that play button every week. Thank you so much. Cheers.